Shai Franklin is a partner with Gotham Government Relations. He's joining us live from New York. Look, Shai, more saber rattling. We're used to that between the US and China. But is this more robust rattling than we've heard recently?
It's a little easier to be robust now because the two presidents have finally had their face-to-face, and they've agreed that this will not come to direct military confrontation. And now I think it's more filling in what's left over from that, which is to reassert the rule of law from the International Court, and to reestablish some U.S. presence in the region after President Duterte has left the scene, after President Trump has left the scene. And let's not forget that President Trump canceled the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was the anchor for U.S. influence in the region.
Indeed, and that was the past. But looking to the future, we've just had the midterms in the US, looking ahead to 2024. Could you see the current administration getting any tougher on China before then?
Some of that depends on what China does. China has been consistently spreading its presence in the South China Sea. It's been threatening Taiwan. It's been a little less helpful on North Korea of late. If there's cooperation and if there's more stability, then I think the United States won't be quite as strident. Won't have to be quite as strident. But the concerns in Taiwan are very real. And with what's happening in Ukraine and the Russian incursion in Ukraine, it's increasingly important for the United States to demonstrate resolve and deterrence with respect to other potential incursions by China in Hong Kong. We see already China has taken over, but now there's concern about Taiwan, and that not be an Asian version of what's happened in Ukraine.
It's a complex patchwork. Let's talk about Kamala Harris, because this isn't actually the first time that she has visited Southeast Asia on her own, by which I mean without President Biden. Why does she get sent for these trips?
President Biden is very busy, and he just met with President Xi and many other leaders at the G20. So I think it's not unusual for a vice president to be sent to these kinds of things, on these kinds of visits. And to some extent, she's starting to consolidate her portfolios. And it would be very smart to have her take the East Asia Pacific portfolio as one of her signature items. It helps set her up as a potential candidate, or at least as a running mate for 2024. But also it gives the White House more of an opportunity to spread its wings. The president cannot be everywhere at once. And it was very important, I think, right after the president sat down with President Xi at the G20, for the vice president to then go out, another principal from the White House to go out and follow up on that, and to show that the United States means business.
Can't be everywhere all at once. Just finally, let's talk about some of the headwinds in the US-China relationship in the coming months. You've already mentioned there Taiwan. You called it a very real risk. But what about other risks to be aware of? You mentioned Hong Kong as well.
Yeah, so Hong Kong, we don't see much about it in the news lately. That's partly because there's been, I guess, less protest, and there's focus on other things. Xinjiang, of course, the ongoing internment, and I guess we could call it genocide, which is a big problem. Less geopolitical, more humanitarian. There's, of course, Myanmar, which continues despite the fact that it's not in all the headlines. The relationship in terms of Russia and China is increasingly important because of Ukraine, and that was also part of what President Biden and President Xi discussed. So we'll have to see what happens in terms of energy reserves being transferred to China, in terms of China maybe providing more trade and support for Russia's effort. Probably not, but the possibility of some military cooperation with Russia, and then of course Taiwan continues to be an issue, as is Korea, and to some extent it also depends on the politics within Taiwan and within South Korea. Then we have our own elections, which have just taken place for Congress. We will have a Republican House of Representatives coming in. The Republicans will control the House and will have a harder line on China The Biden administration has continued the hard line from the Trump administration to some extent, but the Republicans, because they're the opposition party, and partly because ideologically they are a bit more hardline on China, we'll see more pressure on the Biden administration to take stronger steps.
Shai Franklin in New York, thank you.